Good evening, everyone. We hope that you are keeping well in these uncertain times. I am Tisha Jain, the Deputy Director of the Guest Relations Department at the Entrepreneurship and Incubation Cell, and I shall be your host for the evening. I would like to welcome you all at this riveting session named Applying Arithmetics to Business. We have on board with us today Mr. Divesh Bathija, the founder of the UnMath School. Thank you, sir, for taking out some of your precious time for this webinar. Before we start, I would like to introduce our esteemed principal, Dr. Pooja Ramchandani, who has always been a constant pillar of support and enlightenment for all of us. Her constant encouragement has always motivated us to push our boundaries and achieve excellence. Due to last minute commitments, ma'am could not join the seminar. I would also like to introduce Dr. Naveen Punjabi, who is a leading vice principal at our college and professor in charge of our ESEL. We all know him as super enthusiastic, supportive, and enterprising person who always encourages us to give our best, set high benchmarks, and achieve new heights. I would request Sir to say a few words.
Thank you, Tisha, for this very kind introduction. But I think it's all because of students like you and Divesh. Not many years ago, hi Divesh, good to see you.
Absolutely, sir.
So not many years ago, Divesh was sitting in one of those benches where you would be sitting. From last 1 year, you have missed the pleasure of those benches and that canteen as well. So unfortunately, because of this pandemic, we haven't been getting the chance to meet physically. But yes, virtually we all have been engaged over the last 1.5 years. So as I said, that not many years ago, Divesh was one of the star students there sitting in his BBI class, if I remember distinctly. And he used to attend lectures like you all used to do. He used to eat the same canteen food like you all used to eat. And today he is very successful in founding this very interesting company called as UnMath and is doing very well. So the whole idea of the Institution Innovation Council of HR College, or the ESEL, which you commonly known as, was to get people whom you can relate to, whom you can talk to, who can tell you कौन खड़ूस है, कौन नहीं है, किससे पंगा लेना चाहिए, किससे नहीं लेना चाहिए, who can give you those which Chinese में कौन सा dish अच्छा है, कौन सा नहीं है. So you can relate to people like Divesh because they have been there, done there, they have been in midst of where you are at the present moment, and you may decide what you want to do, taking inspiration from the stories of people like Divesh who have taken the leap of faith into entrepreneurship and have succeeded. Of course, they've had their own bumpy rides in between, which he will definitely share. But end of the day, what I have seen is on the Instagram or on the Facebook, a very successful entrepreneur who is doing very well in his life and career. And we always wish him very best. And we always keep praying that our alumni keep doing well and they keep coming back to our alma mater. On this note, I wish all the students best of luck. I would strongly suggest be yourself and ask as many questions because he's one of you. And you can ask him anything. Anything means you can bindas ask him anything, even if you feel, in terms of which you could not ask other speakers, which you were reluctant to ask to other speakers, because he's one of your own. And trust me, this will remain within this room and you can decide for yourself. Okay. At this note, I welcome Divesh. It's pleasure having you back here, and we hope to meet you in person very soon. And we hope to invite you to college as well. All the best, and over to Trisha to introduce our guest and take it forward.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very, very warm welcome. I have to say, sorry, I missed out. Someone was saying something.
Go ahead.
Okay. I really wanted to appreciate this entire initiative of getting all of us back together. And more than you guys, we are nostalgic, even though this is a virtual session. Just the word of HR college can, go down your spine and you can feel that, oh, I'm back to the same place. Well, honestly, let me tell you, this is the place where I found my life partner. This is the place where I found passion. This is the place where I found what I really want to do. One of the key people to inspire me were a couple of sirs in our college, like Atul sir, Naveen sir. They were so young and they were into the education space. That was one inspiration which said that why are we not getting into the education space? What's the reason why we are so hell bent on only taking up corporate jobs and always want to focus on doing something so stereotyped? So this was one of the major areas why I was really inspired of taking into the education space. And of course, our then principal, Dr. Mrs. Indu Shahani, also inspired us. Now, today, before we start our session, I was honestly asked by the team if I want to share a presentation. And I said, there's no need to share a presentation. We're going to be having a chat. The idea is to speak to all of you, not just to share my journey. I know that this talk is supposed to inspire you to become an entrepreneur, or my journey is supposed to inspire you to do that. But let me tell you something. My journey can only be a story which you can hear. You can learn from it. But what can inspire you is your own journey. Only you and your journey can actually inspire you to take you to multiple places. So on that note, I'm going to start off today's conversation. But like I said, sir said, this has to be an interactive session. We've got to make the most of it. Everyone's stuck in their households. But thanks to technology, at least we have the opportunity to speak. And what we are going to be doing today is I'm going to be breaking a talk in a couple of segments. So first segment, I'm going to be talking about the first thing, that is why entrepreneurship? Why did I even think of it in the first place? And why should you consider doing it? And uh, should you avoid being an entrepreneur also? It's a true litmus test. If you are an individual who is willing to take, or willing to head on risks. Now, when people talk about risks, it's a very fancy word. Believe me, it's not something which you and I can actually sit down on a piece of paper and say that this is risk, this is not risk. It's not possible. When I say risk, it's about the mindset of risk, what kind of risk you can actually take. Are you willing to lose everything that you have and then start from the scratch? If you're able to answer that question, you're ready to be an entrepreneur. If you feel that, no, I don't want to break that safety cocoon around me, I want to stay a steady and a secure job, then at that point of time, that entrepreneurship is not for you. It is very, very important that you have to have a very strong vision. Now, when I say, when I say a strong vision, it does not mean you should know what you want to do. You should just have a strong passion. You should know what you want to really achieve. Now, when I started this venture, I'll tell you a story behind this. What actually inspired me to start this venture? Like I was a student in HR college, a regular guy trying to, attend lectures, at times bunk lectures, of course, having a lot of them, spending a lot of time at Raju Chinese, eating everything possible, trying out every menu, every dish available out there. But what really inspired me over there was that while we would sit down in the canteen and, we would spend time, the kind of support that I saw of interacting with our faculty or with our staff members was not. I mean, I never bumped into a staff member who knew I was bunking and would come and tell me that, hey, why are you not attending? They actually had a healthy conversation with us. So I think the first step is to actually develop a healthy surrounding around you, to talk to people. So this is where we're going to break our ice. After a few minutes, I'm going to ask each one of you to share, maybe a few of you who'd like to volunteer, to share one or two moments of your life where you felt, I think this was a cool idea that struck me. You're definitely going to get there, but I'm giving you a heads up, a couple of minutes to think on it. So when I pause, a couple of you can start telling me on that front. So I was saying that when we sat in our in our lectures, or we sat outside our lectures, we always started thinking, what is it that we can do in order to make our life, or actually solve a problem? That's very, very important. If you're able to solve a problem, whatever your business idea is, it may be the silliest thing, but if it's solving a very simple problem, like I remember somebody giving me an example that, you know, uh, somebody had a major trouble in combing their hair, and they decided to enter manufacturing combs in a specific manner because it was a problem that he solved. And believe me, he's a very, very big successful entrepreneur. You may not know that brand because that brand is not very famous, but they white label products and they export, and they're huge manufacturers of the same. Again, problem solving is a very important thing. So it so happened that after I was successfully completed my college out here, I got the opportunity to get a scholarship. I studied abroad. That was through HR college only. I went to University of Westminster. When I was there, One of the days, now this is a very personal story, and I'm taking the liberty to share it with everyone out here because you all can relate to it. This was back in the day in 2010. I was sitting in a classroom, of course, like a typical student, morning 8 o'clock class. आँख नहीं खुलती है यार, बहुत नींद आती है उस time पे. So, and especially when you had a long night, I don't want to talk about what was a long night, but yes, it was a good night with my friends. It was a long, long night, and I had to attend the first lecture in the day, and I was not at all in the mood. It was a new semester. It was a first period. So I decided, let me just drag through it. I somehow sat with my cup of coffee and my laptop trying to see if I can actually avoid this lecture or no today. The professor walked in and he said something which kind of made me decide that I'm going to leave the class. And can anyone tell me what did that professor say? Actually, it got me really very happy and I decided to leave the class. So can anyone just randomly jump and say that what do you think the professor must have said? Anybody would like to take, or you can even put it on the chat box. I'm sure I can read all your messages there as well. Anybody would like to say? Well, I'll break the buzz. I'm waiting for another couple of seconds. Come on, someone can definitely give it a try. Something to not be stereotyped. Somebody send me a message. Well, I'll say in your language what he said. This chapter is not going to come in the exam. So automatically, the first thing I did was take my laptop, took my coffee, I said, I'm going back. I'm not going to attend this class because obviously, why would we attend? I mean, Naveen sir has been there. Everyone's been there. If we know that this chapter is not going to come in an exam, we none of us are actually going to attend that class, right? So that very minute, a couple of my friends who were from different countries, they said that, why do you want to leave the class? And I said, well, this chapter isn't going to come in the exam. And that is when he actually told me that, you know what, go through the entire textbook. Everything that you do is interconnected to today's chapter. It's the most important chapter for the entire semester. And I was actually shocked that time. And I decided that maybe I've been looking at things in a very different way and in a very wrong manner all throughout. And that is where I realized that our education, thing that we learn and the thing that we try to understand through this education is very, very simple, that we don't know why we are studying it. We don't know where are we going to apply it. And that is where it struck me all throughout my schooling life. Every time a teacher said, this chapter is omitted, I would not even look at that chapter all throughout my school life. It's obvious, right? We all have been there, we all have done that. So this is where the first seed of thought came into my mind that when I come back to India, the first thing I want to do is I want to do something in the education space. I want to change the way we look at things and change the way we do things. Now, I am not going to accept anybody not telling me a few options that some of your wow moments or things that have changed your mind. A couple of you have to volunteer. Otherwise, the session is going to be very boring. Come on, who's going to take the plunge?
So most of us joined college in the pandemic, so we've not seen the classroom atmosphere at all.
I can understand. And how about your exposure so far on the online space? When you see people attending so many lectures online, don't you feel that there are so many opportunities that you can solve, so many problems that you can solve? कभी तो दिमाग में आया होगा कि यार something could have been done to make this situation a little better. Anybody? Anybody? Have you ever thought about this idea? Feel free to talk, guys. It's all about, you're gonna only share. Nobody's, I mean, although the session is getting recorded, but nobody's reporting anything to any professor. I'm pretty sure Naveen is pretty chill about it. Don't worry. He's not going to judge you on it, that's for sure. So anybody, let me tell you, uh, this was, I mean, when you talk about your journey, when you talk about ups and downs, and sir very correctly mentioned, Uh, this was in the year 2011 when I came back to India and I decided that, I took up a corporate job till the time I could decide what I wanted to do. I was pretty passionate about the idea that I want to start something in the education space. I did my research and I found mathematics. the word math actually kind of scared a lot of people. And when I say scared, I think it's kind of misinterpreted. People don't really understand why they're doing these concepts in school. So that was one of my trigger point. I definitely saw that this is an area where we can do something about it. And back then, there wasn't so much of edtech. There was no Byju's. There was nothing of that sort available. So we saw that, there was the only source of content available to you was YouTube. And there were a couple of other video streaming platforms. All of them spoke about science experiments and so many and languages and everything, but except for mathematics. So I thought maybe that's an area where we can actually try to help children, loosen up or, refresh themselves. So I started something in 2012 with the intention to see. All my friends were like, have you lost it? You've done a master's from UK, you're coming back and you want to be a teacher. And I said, well, being a teacher is a pretty cool job, right? Like, you'll always be with young kids, you'll always enjoy with them, and you'll get to learn so much. So but no, there was a lot of backlash. Everyone said that, you're kind of wasting your degree. And I said, no, I'm not going to waste my degree. I mean, instead of me, I done my course on investment and risk finance. So I said, instead of helping other companies analyze their risk factors, I'll make sure that I analyze risk for my own company and I'll try to raise financial structure for my own company. So why should I worry about my degree going waste? People said you studied banking and insurance. And I said, I'll strengthen the way I do banking. I strengthen the way I'll insure things. So nothing's going to go a waste. It's all about how you look at things. Again, my journey began in 2012. It wasn't an easy one. A lot of people were not, the education system was not very open back then to major reform. We all know how we've learned math in our schools. It wasn't the best method. Till date, if I ask you tables, you're going to tell me two twos are, two threes are, but you'll never know that what is the meaning behind it. I had a couple of friends who wanted to join our firm back then as interns, as they were just about to finish college. And when I asked them a simple question that, do you know how to find out profit percentage? Everyone knew the answer. I'm sure all of you also now, because you're accounting students and you would know what is profit percentage. But the minute I asked them that, why do we use that formula of profit percentage? Why can't we just calculate the profits? Or why don't we use it profit upon CP? Why don't we put it upon SP? What's the logic behind it? Nobody knew. Everyone, that was a clear indication that maybe our education system in our preliminary years needs to step up. We are doing a lot of reform in the higher education space. You all are getting so much of exposure, but if you compare that with your preliminary years, it's actually it's way too less. We really need to focus on the fact that what can we do to make sure that these people or all of us or all our younger children can start learning or interpreting math in a different way. So after a little bit of research, a little bit of struggle, we started finding a little bit of faith in a couple of schools who started appreciating our work. In 2014, we managed to establish ourselves in a couple of very good residential schools in India, in the best of best schools. And that was the time when I happened to reach out to, I had a connection in Nepal. I managed to reach out over there, and uh, my wife was from there, and she was studying in HR college. So she introduced me to a few schools in Nepal. And when I went there, I saw every school was so keen to learn and do something new. For them, somebody coming from India and training was an absolute new thing. I got carried away. And obviously, I started picking up a lot of projects out there. And those projects that I lined up, it was a huge amount. And it was the first time in my year wherein I kind of sold so many sessions of mine. I was extremely excited. But then in 2015 came the earthquake. Buildings fell down, schools fell down. And what happened was, obviously, if you understand the sales cycle, it was very simple that I could only commit to a certain number of schools in a certain year. And because I had given a lot of importance to Nepal, I had invested a lot of my eggs in one basket. I kind of gave 70% of my time of my year to Nepal, with, of course, two reasons. I was getting money, and second, I was keen to go and visit my would be wife then. So I said I can do two in one. But ultimately, what just happened? I lost 70% of my revenue in one day. Now, it was the new financial year, and I had to survive with just 30%. I'd built a team. I had to bear their expenses and the cost. How was I supposed to going to live with that? Within a month's time, after a lot of brainstorming, tried everything possible, I get a notification from my bank. Your account balance is 89 rupees. And this was on the 10th of the month. I had 20 days to make sure that I could pay about 1 lakh of rupees for salaries back in office, rent and everything. And I said, okay, something has to be done. So all I did was I said, it's the only thing is when you're in trouble, you come up with a solution. And that was the first time I came up with a solution that earlier I would only sell if a school had to engage with you for the entire year. I said, you can take a 1 day program, you can take a 2 day program. And I managed to sell a few of them. I managed to raise about 50,000 rupees back then. Spoke to a few employees, spoke to the landlord, deferred my payments by a month or two, told them that, you've seen my track record. Give me some time. I'm going to come back and bounce back over there. Step by step, I started building the bricks again. And you won't believe what just happened. I kind of came up with a program called as Express Entrepreneurship. Wow, I mean, that sounds funny, right? But the idea of express entrepreneurship was obviously to make quick money, but at the same time, play a couple of games with children, which included Jenga, Uno, darts, and do a 3 hour session with kids in the school with the who are in the age group of 8th standard and above, and they would get to know that are they fit to be an entrepreneur or no. Now, when I played these games with them in the 3 hour format, uh, I created this out of fluke because I was running out of ideas, and I wanted to show them that how math is used in entrepreneurship. So when I created this module, you won't believe it. In a matter of 3 months, these workshops became so popular that again schools were struggling to fix up dates with us. Again, I was getting back on track and I was moving in a very different direction. I consistently kept on improving whatever I could do. We kept looking at different modules of math. I'm going to come to the math aspect a little later, but I'm going to talk about the fact that how does a company actually fall and rise, and that will happen after every periodic time. You will not see a steady growth until you're not seeing the lows. You'll never measure that this is the worst low, or there can be a low below this also. You've always got to be prepared. So I'm not scaring you guys, but I'm telling you that if you are in a position to manage all of this stress, I wouldn't call it stress for you guys, but if you can manage the ups and downs and you're saying, okay, I'm willing to stand by again, then you should go for it. After that perspective, I decided that, it's time for us to go and spread our wings a little more outside India. We consistently kept trying, and there opened the door for us in UAE. So now we were in India, we were gaining a little bit of traction. We got it in UAE, in Nepal. Schools were, rebuilding themselves. So till 2017, we were stuck with no Nepal, only in India. And then UAE opened up. Now, when UAE opened up, everybody wanted to do an express entrepreneurship workshop. I remember in 2013, when I started my venture, I went and did a research in UAE myself. I had a few good connections, and there was a reason why I could not do business over there because I wasn't certified by the government to open an organization. Unless I did that, I would only then be allowed to do it. So automatically, that meant I need to invest a lot of money in the UAE market to set up a business over there. So that was the government regulation because of which I couldn't get through. Well, in 2017, the tables turned around. You know what? Each and every school in UAE had to go through some sort of an inspection by the same government because without that inspection, the schools could not increase their fees. And then they needed someone to introduce creative mathematics, and they wanted me as a consultant. I had to go and consult about 20 schools in UAE, ensure that they turned around their entire strategy, and not as a company, but as an individual, I had to go there and sort this out. And then the government started recognizing our efforts out there, and now we are an established organization over there. That is because the way you approach it. Anytime someone tells you cannot do this, be clear about one thing. You cannot do it because you have to sensibly evaluate, is this a viable thing? Ask a few people, make sure that you get proper validation. But if somebody is telling you you cannot do it, that means there's a stronger need for you to do it because people fear competition, people fear change. So make sure that you always keep doing things the way you want to do it. We were growing exponentially very well, and our business was purely a B2B business. Just to further explore on that, it meant only collaborating with schools and colleges. So B2B, business to business. Now, after 2019, we were all set for a very big year in 2020. We had come up with some amazing new programs, and then we all know what happened in the start of 2020. The pandemic hit us. All the schools got shut down. Everybody said that we cannot afford to pay any of our contractual obligations. So we decided, well, we have 3 weeks time. I told the entire team, you have 3 weeks time. Come up with a plan that we can sustain the pandemic. Now, the first step that we took in the pandemic was, I'm sure, these were words by my wife, and she said, when the whole education system is struggling, the first thing you got to do is think in a different way, and they should say that at UnMath School, during the pandemic, you did something which nobody else would have ever thought of. It was my dream to connect math with cricket. And that was the right time when I met Ajita Gankar in the pandemic, and we decided the cricketer. And he called us and we combined math. So case study that as a cricketer, what kind of math does he use when he's on the field? When he was a fielder, when he was a bowler, when he was batting, taking his matches as a reference. Keeping all that in mind, I started a program called as Cricket Math, which was a first launch in B2C. Just to give you, B2C is an organization directly working with customers, that is parents, directly connecting with them. So in this situation, it was very, very important that all we had to do was come up with the right strategies. And in last 12 months, we launched about 24 different courses. Every course is called as an experiential math, wherein we did concepts like Lego math, Uno math, soccer math, sport math, Bollywood math. And now you might wonder, what is Bollywood math? We actually called producers. We tried to reach out to actors, get them to speak that. What kind of maths do they use when they are actually in the entire production system? What goes on over there? All of this just to make one thing, that math is relevant at the right age. A child should know what is a fraction and why do we use a fraction. A child should know what is probability and why should we use probability. If you use trigonometry, I'm sure that is one topic which hounded every single one of us, including me. When I was school, I never understood what the hell was trigonometry. Can anyone tell me who shares a common pain point that okay, I hated math or kind of hated trigonometry as a student? Anybody? Yes, we have someone who's raised their hand. Go ahead, Tisha. You can unmute yourself. Can you, or do I need to unmute you? Okay. Those who want to speak, I think you can unmute yourself directly, right? Come on, unmute.
Hello. No.
Yeah, Tisha.
So I think it's just a thing that so every time we were taught about the whole geometry or trigonometry thing, it was something that told me that what if I don't have to use this further, like aage jaake. I even dropped math in my 12th in my FIGC and SYGC. I dropped it. I did it for a year. FY. I did not pass on the first semester, and then finals when I had to pass, not with grace marks, but I did. I passed this, and then I dropped it, and I took SP because it was not my cup of tea. And now that I'm doing accounting and finance, I don't see myself using it anywhere, or I don't even hear about it, like trigonometry or X square, whatever, A plus B is equal to what. So I just think it would be better if we were taught something that was much more important for us in the future. We would use it somewhere.
Correct. I completely agree and share the same sentiment with you. Uh, is there anyone else? We have a message from one of your, from Katrina Jain, who said trico, permutation, probability were a pain to understand. Trust me, they were a pain for me too. I didn't have someone actually coming in and telling me, look, this is where you're actually going to be using it, right? That was the most important part. So, talking about these things, I remember I was in one school in Ahmedabad, and the kids asked me this question, that, you know what, trigonometry is an utter waste of time. So I took the school's permission. This was, of course, before the pandemic. I told the entire grade 9 and the 10th to go around inspecting each and every security camera in the school, identify in the security room, go to the watchman's cabin, understand how many cameras are set up, where all are they kept, change the height or the angle of the camera, and see if you can reduce the number of cameras that you actually are using. You won't believe it. They came back with a proposal after doing a lot of research. They use trigonometrical ratios subconsciously, not directly. They changed the height, they changed the angle of the cameras, and they landed up removing 5 cameras from the school. Now, it may seem very small, there are only 5 cameras, but do you understand? 5 cameras in a school means constant use of electricity, constant carbon imprint already being used, and the amount of storage, like, everything ultimately goes into e-waste, which is not required. Now, kids realize that everyone will need a security camera moving down the line, whether it's your building, whether it's your house, whether it's your office, wherever you're working, whatever you're doing. It's such a simple, basic thing, right? You don't really question why your tube light is kept on the top of your house. Why is it not kept at the bottom? Because there's a trigonometrical ratio used out there. We have our boards, of course. Now we're using LED displays, but when we go back to colleges, which I'm hoping very soon, but to college you will see there's a white, a green board or a black board. So when you see there, why is it not kept down? Why is it kept up? Why do we see all the professors climbing on a stage and then teaching us? Because we're realizing that we're trying to reach out to a bigger set of people. The angle at which they can see everyone is very important. The angle where you can see them is also very important. So every little bit that you see, now I also talking about what Diksha said. Yeah, sorry, she's mentioned about use of a plus b the whole square. Just a quick check. There's been a little bit of rainfall over here, so want to double check if my voice is audible and I'm not glitching at all. Can someone just give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me clearly and there's no trouble at all? In okay. So, when we talk about algebra as a concept, a plus b the whole square, every child who speaks to me cries about it literally and says, why do we need to do it? I'll have only a simple reason for it. When you plan your next holiday, I'm sure you will, and I'm assuring you it will happen in the next couple of months. When you will do so, you will use a lot of algebra. If you've planned any holiday in the past, if you're planning your entire timetable follow in schools or in colleges right now, Naveen sir must be using the maximum number of algebra that you might even think at this point in time, wherein he has to give equal amount of sessions to every subject that is allocated for you guys. There is an equation which is written. We all use maths subconsciously so much that we don't even realize that where are we actually using it. That's the beauty of the subject. If you're trying to ask me a question, a plus b, the whole square, how do I actually use that? That is building your thought process that how can you create more and more solutions when you have real problems. How do you deal with different situations? Nobody's gonna come and teach you how to solve a problem in writing, but they have to challenge your mind to make sure that at least you're thinking in the right place. I think I have lost some connectivity. No, I'm back up. Okay, great. So moving forward, I am going to be opening up this discussion for a little bit of a chat. The idea, once again, I'm going to tell all of you, never think that anybody's journey is actually going to inspire you, but you're going to learn from their journey. What are you going to learn? The mistakes that they made and the good things that they did. These are two things you've got to see in every entrepreneur. If I were you, I would study every failed startup. understand what were the problems that they've actually done. I have done the same for myself. I have looked at every educational startup which has risen extremely high or fallen extremely down. And one thing I honestly feel is lacking in education startups is not everyone is actually a teacher by profession. You will not see a teacher turned into an entrepreneur. So that is why when I started, I knew I wasn't a teacher. I decided for the first 4 years, I'm only and only going to do workshops for students, understanding the problem at the grassroots level. Remember, you cannot reach your goal in a very short period of time. If you do, you have to work even hard to sustain it. But if you have to work a little more hard extra to get a strong foundation, it's going to be worth the wait. However, on that note, I invite all of you to feel free and ask me questions or any kind of apprehensions that you have. That, okay, I want to start a venture, but, and let me tell you, there's no right age. You can start. I was working when I was in college. I made 14 attempts, failed attempts, right from my school. I don't know. I think I should have mentioned this in the beginning, but I started my first business when I was in 8th standard. There was no compulsion, there was no problem as such. It was just that passion that I wanted to fund my own education. I wanted to take responsibility of it. So when I started back in school, I used to sell perfumes. I used to reach out. I had a very simple strategy. See, I'm a Sindhi guy. I have a straightforward mindset. I'm going to think of only making money at every point of time. The first thing that I thought was, I have a set of 40 friends in my class. I have 4 sections in my school. I have 160 friends. I'll go to everyone's house on a weekend, show them a bunch of perfumes that I have. I made a profit of 100% on every one that I sold. Perfumes were in the perfectly priced range, about less than 200 bucks back in 2000. And I'm talking about 2002 now. So it was very affordable. Everybody would want to buy it. Especially imagine if your friend comes to your house when you're in school, your parent would be like, Arey, iska friend hai, le lo. And that was the another angle. See, I was so cunning at a very right age also. I used to make sure that people would buy it from me. I managed to sell as many perfumes as possible. And then I made a lot of mistakes. I tried different attempts. I tried getting into real estate. I failed. I tried getting into consulting, I failed. I tried into marketing consulting, I failed, but that didn't stop me, right? So never fear being a failure. Never fear taking the wrong. I mean, it's okay if you make wrong moves. You're going to learn, right? So only an exam that you're going to give is not really going to help you. I mean, you may pass in the exam, but you're going to face an exam every single day. Every day there's going to be a new challenge. And these challenges are very simple. There are times wherein you, being the founder of your own company, have to go run for a check and go and deposit that in the bank yourself. So that's okay. I mean, you've got to do all sorts of work. I've even done swabbing of my own office. Big shit, because everyone has to do it, right? The person didn't come, so we can't just leave the office dirty. We've got to do. Someone's got to take responsibility. So the idea is do something wherein you're not afraid of failing. And if you do fail, write down what errors you made and what you could have done better. That's very, very important. Learning from failures is more important than just observing success. The more you look at, I mean, I'm sure I'm going against the trend. Tell you, read such successful stories, you will become a very successful person. I beg to differ. Successful people have done amazing stuff. You can learn from them, but that will not change your entire life. You have to focus on failed startups. You've got to focus on what got them down so that you don't make the same mistakes. But anyways, I won't take up much time. I hate being one of the persons speaking so much, which I've already done. I want to hear from you guys and answer your questions if you have any. Guys, remember, ask as candid questions as possible. It could be lame. No one's going to judge you. But if you don't ask them now, you're going to regret it. I did regret when I didn't ask a few questions. When a few entrepreneurs came to our college when we were in college, I was like, what will everyone think about me? Don't think about it. At the end of it, you are only going to be concerned about yourself. So ask your questions, no matter how silly it may sound, it may actually have a very relevant point. Go ahead.
Hi, sir. I wanted to ask, why do you think that countries abroad are more acceptable of innovative ideas in education
Mhm.
more than India?
So that's an interesting question. I think it's the mindset, the overall mindset. When you look at parents now, you see parents who have 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds now. They are well read and they are well versed with what's happening in the global trend. So they expect new innovations. The problem is that the children, those who are above 15 years and now, and for the last 15 years, the parents were not aware themselves. For them, education means just going to school, going to college, getting a degree, and that means you automatically got sorted your life. But now things are changing in such a dynamic pace that, and of course, as a developing country, our population now that is entering, all the parents who are becoming parents now or in the last 5 years, they are a lot more aware as compared to previous generations. So I think that plays a very, very important role.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Five of you guys could have asked like a zillion questions. Come on. I can see an irking on Ansh Jain's face that I want to ask a question, but I'm not too sure of asking that question. What if somebody will laugh at me? Is that true?
Not exactly, sir.
Hi,
Okay.
sir. Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you said that you have almost lost 70% of your revenue at some point of time. So after such a bad time, many people start losing their confidence on the startup. So what was the first thing that kept you always confident about your startup?
Well, honestly, that's a very good question. I actually never thought about it myself. But if I go to see, there were two factors. At the back of my mind, I knew that even if my startup fails, I'm well educated to go back and take up a job. So it's a matter of time. So as a backup, I think we all have, as when we say that education is important, it's definitely important. So you always have a strong backup. Another thing which actually kept me going was I believed in my idea and I knew that I did not lose 70% of my revenue because my idea was bad. I lost it because of a natural calamity. It was just the way I positioned myself kind of caught me off guard. So I realized that I should have diversified my eggs and I should have made sure that I had kept myself in different countries so that at any given point of time, I don't really face this kind of a problem because if one market goes down, the others can actually help us. Also, that gave me an idea to think that in India, as we all are from Mumbai, we kind of think that a normal school cycle starts from June to March and April, and then we have vacations. But that's not the case in the entire country of India. There are schools which run from January to December cycle also in the north because of severe weather conditions. So I had to make sure that I was well planned because I could not have a seasonal business. I could not have business when I cannot not have business when there are summer vacation because schools will be shut. Children won't come for a math camp in school. They'll come for basketball. They won't come for math. So I had to position myself in different ways that I know in certain states or in certain countries, I'll be occupied during the first few months, and then in the other few months, I'll be in a different country. So at least that way, I'm occupied round the clock. So that was an important learning that I learned during that time.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Who else have we got today?
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hi. Actually, I wanted to ask you what was your initial journey like when you started out, when you had this idea of UnMath School. So, were you alone or did you had a team? And if you had a team, how did you build it?
Well, I started alone. It was a one-man army initially. I did start off with a few interns, a couple of them from HR college, some from other nearby colleges, and through friends and friends. We started doing some research. Of course, the initial things that we planned to do, we planned a couple of events. All of them failed, like miserably failed. None of them even generated a single amount of revenue. But I had factored in the fact that I had done risk. So I knew that I'm okay letting go of certain amount of money, completely zeroing out so that I know that this will not work in the future. So that was absolutely fine. But let me be very honest, you should know when to put a full stop and when to pivot. So when you say a full stop, some people might misinterpret it to stop the company and leave. And pivot is a time when you can say, okay, this isn't working. Let me alter my strategy and go. You'll only be able to pivot as long as you believe in your idea yourself. The minute, like how someone asked me a while back, that if I lose confidence in my own self, I lose the confidence of even pivoting myself further. So the more you pivot, the more you know that market is accepting you, but you're not the best, you're not the perfect person, so your idea may not be the most accepted one, but you're in the right place. You just need to make a few changes to, and alter them so that you fit into the market. That's very important.
Thank you, sir. That's right.
Great, thank you.
Hi, sir.
Come on,
I
any
have a
more other questions?
question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is about passion. So like you every time hear from an entrepreneur or any successful person that you just have to follow your passion. So like in our initial age, like when someone asks me like what is your passion, I'm not able to answer the question because I'm still exploring. So how do you take that journey from exploring till the end, like you where you find that one thing that you're interested in? And is it like you have only one passion like throughout your life? Can you be interested in many more things?
Well, first of all, you're on the right track because you're exploring, so that's very good. As long as you're exploring, that means you're passionate about exploring, which is brilliant. Having multiple passions is is completely as per every individual choice. I may have multiple passions, you may have multiple passions. Some people are single focused, which is absolutely right. As long as you're able to live up to both the passions or multiple passions, it doesn't matter. Now, asking the question about how do you decide at an early stage, you don't have to decide. See, that's the advantage. When you are exploring things, the best thing is always go do something, even if it is not something of your absolute choice, but it's okay. If you're getting an opportunity, grab it. You may learn something out of it. It may be the most silliest thing to do. Like it may be like, there's something, you guys are planning something at home which is not of your passion, but go out and help them. I would say getting involved in some sort of economic activity at your age is very, very beneficial. It may also mean that, spending 1 hour of your day trying to look for internships online and, trying to do our entire organization. I make sure that a large chunk of people who work for us are college students, are passionate about working, and they should be in a position to spend 3 to 4 hours a day, make a stipend of their own self, and ensure that they fund their own education. I'm very passionate about that. So when we see that hunger in these people, that's the time when you may not love the job that you're doing, but you're getting exposure. I did so many odd jobs that, I mean, the idea was I was doing web ad sales in a certain company to, randomly selling content to some other people from website, managing weird things, selling credit cards on the phone and telemarketing, doing everything possible, but sell something. As long as if you know how to sell something, trust me, you've learned how to deal with different kind of people. That itself is a very big learning. So even if you get an opportunity, I'm sure your placement cell can help you find a lot of internships. Uh, just do something. Keep yourself occupied because this is the time you've got to keep your mind a little sane. You cannot go out, but you've got to keep yourself productive. So try to do an internship, take a short term project, take a long term project, whatever you guys have in your mind, but do something about it. So I
Thank
hope
you,
that
sir.
answers your question, but don't stop exploring. Huh?
Yes,
Keep doing that.
sure. Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening, sir. Sir, I
Fine.
just want to know how you took max and invested in your business, like how you worked out max in your business.
So a very simple logic in terms of probability. What may work, what may not work, right? I decided all my outcomes. I did a basic ratio allocation of my resources, that this is the amount of resources I want to allocate for this particular venture. This is the kind of opportunities that can arise, or these are the outcomes I can expect. But I need to give a certain amount of input in order to get a certain amount of output. So the concept of function starts coming in over there. We learn all our functions. Then we talk about our LLP. So we want to maximize our profits and minimize our costs. how can you minimize your cost by trying to find more smarter solutions? Like let's say, for example, of lately we are into a business wherein we are consulting parents, teachers, schools, but then we needed to hire someone specifically only and only to manage all my calendars and to ensure that there is smooth coordination. Then they came out a few web tools wherein I had to just pay $10 a month as against paying someone 15 to 18K salary to just manage my schedules. $10 a month solved my problem. I minimized my cost and I maximized my profits. I rather put that person of 18,000 rupees used in some another area, which will help that person also grow, because just setting up schedules will not let a person grow. It can be done by a website, but what could be done by another human being is understand what a student may want in a session for themselves. So utilizing your resources in the right manner, every single thing that you do, my friend, in your college in terms of mathematics, there is a direct relationship with your math and your business decisions that you're making. So, just to give you a simple understanding, every decision that you take in business is driven by mathematics. It's obviously there's going to be percentage, there's going to be ratios in your mind, without which you cannot take a decision.
Thank you,
I
sir.
hope that answers your
Yeah,
question.
thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Well, I think if any other questions, happy to answer them. Okay. So I hope you guys will not just take away a session today, but take away an experience with yourself. Try to start exploring, putting your time to some sort of use, start selling something. Sell it to me, no problem. But start selling something. It's very, very important. The minute you start doing that from an early age, you're used to rejection. You're used to the fact that how to deal with an outside situation. When people don't want to buy your product, what can you do to sell it better or change your product? Great. Thank you so much, everyone. We have someone to conclude the session today, if all the questions are answered.
Does anyone have any queries, questions to ask?
Yeah. Okay, it seems like people have kind of got a gist of what I was trying to say. I hope all of you remember that. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll definitely make sure that I make my contact details available. So if anybody needs to reach out to me at any point, don't hesitate at all.
Okay, I would like to thank Mr. Divesh Bathija for taking out his precious time and sharing such valuable perception on entrepreneurship and mathematics. I would also like to thank Pooja ma'am, Naveen sir, and the students for taking out some of their precious time for attending this session. We hope that the valuable tips and guidelines shared by our alumni has given you a completely different outlook towards entrepreneurship and mathematics. I request all the students to fill the feedback form for the session, which will be sent on the group shortly. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, sir.
Most welcome. Bye, everyone.